Good evening, all you folks out there in YouTube land. Thrash Pondo's here. And yes, I'm actually presenting you with a treat, and that is the treat of a new post. Well, I apologize for taking this long. It's been a particularly busy summer for me. Also, as you know, I like to film down here in, well, the Botanican Bunker, or the Bridge, or the Valley of Obsolescence, or the Kingdom of Spiders, or whatever you want to call my garage. Just don't call it my garage. And it's been so hot and muggy. I can't. I just can't. But today, I can. I just can. And I'm going to bring you a project I've been working on for, a couple of months at this point. And that is my speculation. Is the movie Day of the Triffids the most drawn upon, influential, post apocalyptic movie ever made? And notes, we have notes. And I'm going to tell you what, there is no right or wrong answer here. If you folks think I am way overselling Day of the Triffids, please join me in the comments below. Let me know. I'd be more than happy to do another post on this. And if you folks agree with me and can think of a few things that I didn't even mention, I would be happy to refer to those as well. But I'm basically going to tell you why I think Day of the Triffids is the most influential post apocalyptic movie ever made. Now, one thing before I open up, it, of course, is based on the novel by John Wyndham, and the novel varies wildly from the film. For the purposes of this discussion, I'm going to stick solely with the film adaptation, and that includes other adaptations. That is to say, there are other post apocalyptic works which have been done both in novel and in film, and for this purpose, I'm going to rely solely on the films. But just a little exposition here. I'm going to give a spoiler free, teeny plot synopsis. Long story short, film opens up with a spectacular light show. There is a meteor shower, which is causing these tremendously brilliant lights to form, and people all go out to watch it. The next day, we find out that that has caused irreversible retinal burns, causing virtually the entire planet to now be blind. And there is an even bigger problem. In these meteors are contained spores from space, which provide seeds for a carnivorous mobile plant that can now creep around and eat people who can now not really defend themselves because they're all blind. And really, what can you do if you can't see your attacker? Really creepy premise. I love it. I love it. Now, this went on to influence so many other works. I know I'm going to miss a few, but I'm going to hit some highlights. First of all, one of the biggies is the idea that people will try to board themselves indoors to survive. I don't know why people think this. Boarding yourself up is marginal protection at best, but I suppose it's better than nothing. But yes, now of course, there's nothing unusual. I mean, in Attack of the Killer Shrews, they try to board themselves up to avoid the, well, they're supposedly shrews. They're really just big German shepherds with really bad effects makeup on. And Fiend Without a Face, they try to board themselves up in a house, but forget that there's a open flue in the chimney. Details. The birds. I mean, pretty much every Western ever made. But here, it's not. There's just something really claustrophobic about it. The idea, it's not a stopgap measure. They're basically making a final stand when they board themselves up. In this case, it's a lighthouse where the scientist couple who live in this now abandoned lighthouse are actually stuck there and are basically making their final stand. And you really feel like this is it for them. Like, and you're joining them in their last ditch effort to stay alive. And you see that, of course, there'd be no Night of the Living Dead. There'd be no I Am Legend and all the, well, Initially, it was Last Man on Earth. That was the initial adaptation of I Am Legend. But all the other adaptations, including I Am Legend, even though I don't count that one because it wasn't very good, nothing about that. We'll talk about that later. The Ultimate Warrior, Legendary Combatant, even when the wind blows, even though there's no real monster to defend themselves from, they still try to board themselves up. And again, it's an age-old trope. We see it in pretty much every zombie movie ever made. And it works. It really does. Also the blindness angle. I mean, there were a lot of other films that involved blindness, and they all owe a nod to Day of the Triffids. Blindness, um, the Bird Box, the one of my personal favorites, Spanish sci-fi horror film, The People Who Own the Dark. If you haven't seen that one, please do. I might actually do a review it for the show, but please go out and see it. It's an excellent film. But yeah, just the idea of what would the social ramifications of mass blindness be? And that is first conceptualized and considered here in Day of the Triffids. Also, something we've seen a lot of in any other number of post-apocalyptic films, the idea of the adoption by proxy. You see it in this case, Bill Madsen in Day of the Triffids finds this orphaned girl named Susan, and they go on all kinds of adventures together, and she becomes sort of an adopted daughter of his. And you see that replayed in any number of other films. I consider Not Living Dead, even though Barbara is only a few years younger than Ben, he has a very sort of paternal protection of her. The Last of Us, definitely. Even A Boy and His Dog. Only in that case, the boy is adopted by the dog, but it still counts. Blood is certainly the adult in his relationship with Vic. Also, and this is something else, minor thing. Like for example, the idea of a woman character being pregnant, and somewhere along the way, they all have to drop what they're doing to help her deliver the baby. They did that in No Blade of Grass. That was also done in Dawn of the Dead. Uh, Children of Man. That's the whole premise behind it. And one of my favorites is, and it's an excellent trope in sci-fi horror circles, the idea when you want your audience to be knee deep in the event. That is to say, you don't want to see the natural progression. You want them to sort of, bam, be right in the middle of it. What you do is have your main character sleep through it. Either they're sick or in a coma. In this case, Bill, the reason he couldn't see the light show the night before is because he had actually hurt his eyes in a flashburn accident. Benders were coming off the next day, and he was suffering from anxiety because he was like getting agitated from like wanting to see this light show, not being able to. They give him a sleeping pill, so he's dead to the world, only to wake up to see everything having already happened. You see that in 28 Days Later. You see that in The Walking Dead. You see that in The Quiet Earth. Not The Quiet Place, although The Quiet Place certainly owes a certain amount of kudos, tip of the hat, as it were, to Triffids as well. But The Quiet Earth, the New Zealand post-apocalyptic film, which is excellent. If you haven't seen it, check it out. By the way, I actually got into an argument in Lost when I said a gentleman said Terry Talks Movies. I'm sure many of you watch him as well. He told me that The Quiet Earth was the first sci-fi post-apocalyptic film from New Zealand, and I said, excuse me, Battle Truck. And he went, nope, you can't count, can't, you down to can key. You can't count Battle Truck because it was an American production, which just happened to be shot in New Zealand. Uh, American production company, American main actors. There were a number of New Zealand actors, by the way. In fact, I remember when I watched that film when I was like, I guess early high school. I go, are they all talking with that down under accent because they're trying to sound like Mad Max? No, it's just the fact that they filmed in New Zealand, so some of the smaller part actors were in fact from New Zealand, and you know what? Why not? Even Shaun of the Dead, he's passed out drunk when the apocalypse happens. And when he wakes up and is trying to shake off his hangover, he comes to terms eventually with the fact that the world has all gone to crud. Now, while I was discussing these with a very good friend and collaborator of mine, he said to me, "Okay, Bob, I'll bite. If Day of the Triffids is such an excellent film, why haven't I seen it?" Well, I must admit, it has not really stood the test of time. The acting is melodramatic to an almost pantomime level. The practical effects, while cool in some spots, are laughable in others. And again, in my opinion, it kind of bit off more than it could chew. The John Wyndham novel is amazing, but they had to really, really, really trim it down in order to get it to feature film length for filmability. And I think it lost quite a bit in doing that. So the harsh reality is it hasn't if I was doing a movie marathon of post-apocalyptic films, I'd probably add it, but it probably wouldn't make my top 10 list. But that doesn't alter the fact of how influential it was. Oh, and I have to add this in there just for laughs. And he's actually taken flack for this. One of the major critics of Day of the Triffids is my favorite sci-fi author of all time, Brian Wilson Aldiss. And he referred to this as the quote unquote cozy catastrophe. Effectively, in post apocalyptic circles, usually people should have a very, very, very bad way. And yet, and at the same time, in Day of the Triffids, they always seem to manage to find caches of food. If they need medicine, they find caches of medicine. They drive around in nice cars. In the story, they actually set up in a really really nice hotel. And ultimately, and this is what Reinaldus brought up, they all run off to the Isle of Wight, which I guess in Britain is considered a very plush, posh uh, vacation land. So it didn't really work for Mr. Aldous as well. But I gotta tell you, and you know what? There's probably more things that I haven't even touched upon. There's probably things as soon as I hit the stop button, I'm like, oh, in fact, I just got one. Oh, yes. And another amazing part is, and we've seen the results of social issues as a result of an apocalypse in other films, but Day of the Triffids is the first film where, yeah, the apocalypse is bad, and the monsters it's released are really, really terrible, but the real thing you gotta watch out for are the other humans. And that's certainly something, Walking Dead, The Road, you name it. So anyway, believe it or not, I'm going to stop pontificating at this point. Pontificating. I'm going to stop pontificating at this point. I'm going to wrap this one up. I want to say thank you all for joining me again. Thank you for your patience. I got some other stuff I'm working on in the works that should be coming out very, very, very soon. But for now, I'm going to leave you with this. Be good, be safe, be careful. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all again very, 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 very soon. Peace.